Starting now, this is Real People. Real issues. Real news. Real people.
I'm Stephanie Allensworth, and this is Real People.
This is Real People.
Hi, welcome to the show. My guest today is Dawn Snyder. Dawn is a reader of the Akashic Records. To find out more about what that means, let's turn it over to Dawn.
Hi, Stephanie. How you doing?
I'm good, and thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Good.
So let's talk Akashic Records. What are they?
So the Akashic Records are an energetic store or an energetic recording of everything that your soul has thought, spoken, experienced throughout all of its incarnations, whether it's on planet Earth or any other planet that exists. Akasha is Sanskrit for the word ether. Ether is an energy that science knows exists, but they haven't been able to identify it. So to kind of conceptualize it, if you had a carbon atom that had a nucleus the size of a Volkswagen Beetle, for instance, the entire atom would be about the size of the island of Puerto Rico, and the electrons that circle would be about the size of a pea. And the question is, what keeps that structure from collapsing? That's ether.
Okay.
And from what I can tell, all psychic information is contained within the ether. And Akasha, again, being Sanskrit for ether, Akashic Records is...
And Sanskrit is what?
Is, I believe it's Indian.
The ancient language of India,
Ancient language of India,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah. That's correct. Yep.
Yeah, and that's what all the chakras are named after, and all that's, they're all in Sanskrit too as well?
Absolutely, yeah. So, so kind of going back into a little bit where the records lead us, oftentimes people will come and they'll have questions about recurring things in their lifetime. And from what I understand about soul growth, each soul will experience everything that can be experienced before it returns to source, whatever you consider source to be, God or the all, the universe, whatever that universal consciousness is that is the source. So in our lifetimes, we've all been murderers, we've all been rapists, we've all been criminals, we've all been heroes. But there's certain things that souls don't learn in a given lifetime.
Right.
And those lessons then will get repeated in future lifetimes. So one of the common questions that I get asked is, can you tell me some lifetimes, past lifetimes, that are relevant in this lifetime? And when I get that question, oftentimes I'll get 3, sometimes 4 lifetimes. And it'll bring up things that are relevant for that person in this lifetime. And particularly for them to know at this moment in this lifetime. So they may have been healers in the past, they may have been psychics in the past, they may have been explorers, they may have been doctors, all sorts of different things.
So if somebody is like in a rut and they keep experiencing the same thing happening to them over and over again, and they want to be able to break that chain of events, I mean, that's really how your soul grows, right?
Exactly.
So they would come to you and say, what was it that started all this, and how do I get past it so I can move on?
Absolutely, that's exactly how it works.
Yeah.
Narcissism is a really good, a really good example.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I get a lot of people that come to me that are experiencing narcissism in this lifetime.
And they're not narcissistic enough to not admit it?
Well, no. They're usually people that are on more of a growth pattern,
Okay,
and
good.
they're being stymied by somebody who's narcissistic.
Oh, I see.
Yes. And so then the question becomes, how do I deal with that type of an issue, especially if it's a family member?
Yeah.
That becomes a little bit of a different situation than when it's an acquaintance, because psychology today tells us that a narcissist is not curable. So that becomes a bit of an issue then.
Kind of borderline psycho.
Exactly.
to psycho, I guess.
Just psycho, yeah. I mean, they're completely self-absorbed. So you've got this person trying to grow, and you've got this other person trying to prohibit them from growing because they want to tap into this energy that this person who's growing has.
So they're energy thieves as well.
Energy vampires, we call them. Yes, exactly. Yep. So, and that's just one example. Oftentimes people will ask me geographically, where does my soul want to live? And those answers typically will be a little bit vague, but I'll get things like a large body of water or any kind of body of water, mountains or foothills of mountains. And typically when that happens, all I have to do is tell them what their soul wants, and they're like, that's exactly where I want to live. And it's a nice confirmation, but
validation as well.
But for them, it's more of a relief. It's like, why do I want to keep going to, you know, to Tucson, Arizona, or wherever the case may be? Their soul's just attracted there because more than likely they experienced a good lifetime, and their soul remembers that, and their soul feels energetically connected to certain types of geography.
Okay. So where do the Akashic records reside? Are they in the ethers, or are they, like some people say, they're in heaven? And I've heard another person say something about where they're in India somewhere.
Okay. Well,
so like you can go there and actually go through the library, which you can. Which anybody can, I suppose, if you know.
Yeah, so your records are right here sitting next to me.
Oh.
And my records are right here.
Oh, okay. So they're internal, or all around us in our auras? Or?
They're energetically within the ether, which is inside of every atom.
I gotcha. Okay.
And so you have access to your records all of the time. It's something that goes with your soul.
So are we accessing them all the time and not even knowing it?
That's very possible. I, for lack of a better term, learned how to access them without even knowing I was doing it. At a fairly young age, actually. I was about 13.
Oh, well, let's go there then. Tell us how this all got started for you.
Okay, so I was brought up. I'm German and Swede, living in Minnesota. So I, went to a Lutheran church, and I went away on a church retreat when I was 13, and something changed for me during that retreat. And I can't tell you exactly what it was, except I was connected all of a sudden. And once I had that connection, I thought I was talking to God. I didn't know anything about psychic. This was back in the early 70s? Yeah, would have been early 70s.
Yeah, it was still taboo then.
It was taboo, exactly. And so I had told a family member that I could talk to God. And they said I was sacrilegious, I was blasphemous, that I couldn't talk to God without getting proper training through the church. And so that kind of stymied me for a while. But every time I got into a rut between then and the time I started practicing, I would ask myself, what does my soul want? And just, you can open your records with just intent. You don't need a special prayer, although I do use a prayer just because it helps people kind of get in the mood, a short meditation kind of a thing. But it's 5-7 seconds long. So you can access your own records with just intent. Ask yourself, what does my soul want? And one of the things that I used to ask my soul is, am I supposed to be a minister? And it kept coming back and saying no, but I'm supposed to be involved spiritually, which I'll say you're 13 back in 1974, there's not a lot of stuff to grasp on at that point.
And that was equated to the church at that time.
Yeah, all spirituality went through church at that time. And I've since learned spirituality, it doesn't make you special, it just makes you connected. And having a different perception of what spirituality was changed the way I looked at things significantly. And that's what I want to spread the word about with the Akashic records, is that you can change the way that you see things by knowing that you're intended to be here for a specific reason.
Okay.
In this lifetime, you're meant to learn certain lessons,
Yeah.
very simply. People ask me, what life lessons have I learned? And I'll get a lot of interesting answers. Some people have learned financial or resource management lessons. Other people have learned lessons about unconditional love, both in the negative and the positive. They've been taught how to give it. They've been taught how to deal with not having it returned. Unconditional love, in theory, doesn't have to get returned, but in a human sense, we expect all kinds of love to get returned.
Yeah.
So it becomes a...
And we're taught that as well. I think,
Absolutely,
you
we
know.
are.
So, and it's not a truism. It's the best case scenario.
Right. And it's a societal expectation, too. It's,
Yeah.
you know, if somebody says they love you, you're supposed to say, well, I love you back. Things like that, they get interesting when we talk about soul lessons, because people literally start crying when they realize that, hey, this is what's causing issues for me.
Yeah, so new souls versus old souls. You know, because I think we still do get new souls coming into the planet.
Yeah.
And so are those, how do those people differ in today's society from the people that are the old souls?
Well, the old souls, in my opinion, this is just one person's opinion, mind you, the old souls, or the mature souls who have learned a lot of lessons, they tend to want to know how they can help other people and be of service, how they can help other people experience the soul growth that they've experienced. A younger soul, or souls that refuse to learn lessons, so to speak, those souls tend to want to know, well, how can I be successful in this lifetime?
Yeah.
How can
They're more self-centered and looking for self-achievement
Yes.
versus giving to others, giving back.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I can almost tell from the second a person sits down what kind of a soul they're carrying with them.
So it might be a little more towards the narcissistic spectrum?
I said narcissism, and I've never actually had somebody that I consider narcissistic ask for a reading.
Oh, okay.
And they wouldn't.
Yeah, because they would never...
They would never consider themselves needing any type of advice. And that's the interesting thing about a narcissist is
they need it the most.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so those.
Like, that's too bad. Maybe do it's Free Narcissist Day.
There you go. That might actually. No, I don't think that's going to work. But yeah, so the younger souls, as you call them, or the souls that have learned fewer lessons, they tend to. They tend to want to know how they can achieve societal norms, as opposed to the older, more mature souls want to know, how can I help society out? How can I help the greater, the universal consciousness become one?
Yeah. Yeah, we need a lot of that right now, and I'm hoping there's a lot of old souls on the planet, because we've never needed it more.
Yes. I hang around with a few of them. I can tell you there's a good supply. There could be more, but there's a good supply. Yeah,
there's a whole lot of people that are trying to do, for the greater good.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to be where we are today and know what. I mean, I'm not by any means any type of a professional, but I have studied. So I know about the Akashic Records, and I've studied, in the metaphysical realm.
Right.
So I'm not a novice, but I can definitely see, like you said, when people are not willing to give anything.
Yes.
It's like, geez. You have no idea what you're doing yet.
No, and that's just it.
Yeah. So let's go back a little more back into your past, because dealing with that, like I call it coming out of the psychic closet.
Yeah. Right.
So, and especially in the 70s when if I read my horoscope, I was dancing with the devil, right? So. And that was a problem for me, because I liked all that stuff way back then. I was drawn to it, and I was raised Catholic, so I went through that same you know, this is, you know, it's all in the garbage, and you can't read about that stuff, and you can't be a part of that, and until you get to a part where you're able to make your own decisions. You
Yes.
know? So what kind of hurdles did you have to?
Well, this is kind of an interesting part, and I'm finding a lot of people have a similar story, where they got stymied somehow. Somebody suppressed them, and as they got into their 40s more, that's when they decided that, you know what, I just don't care.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't really matter to me what you say. I'm going to do what I feel my soul needs to do. So from the age of probably 14 or so, when I finally kind of let it go, I used it in kind of a hidden fashion. I do computer programming part-time still, and I did it full-time for, I don't know, 40 years. Interestingly enough, when I would run into a computer program, I would do something, an issue in a computer program that I couldn't solve. I would do something internally, a meditation of some kind, and answers would come. I would solve problems without having the education to solve the problems. And I always thought that was rather interesting. I didn't know what it was, but it became habitual. I could do it kind of on demand.
Yeah, nice.
Which was kind of fun. And it worked out well. And then when I hit my early 50s, there was a shift in my energy of some kind. And all I can tell you is that at that point, I became more and more open about having a gift and being willing, I'm not quite sure how to say this, wanting to share it, for that gift to blossom.
Yeah.
So over the last 5 or 6 years is when it's really blossomed for me. I was a closet psychic, so to speak.
Yeah.
And
only really using it for your own, you know, when you felt the need to solve something.
Whether it was an issue in the family, or if it was a programming issue, whatever it may be. So the last 5 years have been my coming out of the closet, so to speak. And that actually was kind of painful for my kids, because I wound up going through a divorce at that time. And one of them understood, the other one didn't, because she just doesn't believe in that. And so it's not like it tore us apart, but it changed the way I went to look for support, so to speak. And I got lucky. My mother is an ordained minister, and she actually took classes from Echo Bodine back in the 80s.
Oh, really?
And when I brought it up to her, she's like, you got to go see Echo.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
And I'm like, Mom, I looked at her webpage. It says Orapalooza on there. I mean, really? How can you go to Orapalooza? And it kind of just, she's like, just go see Echo.
And you do readings there every third Saturday, right?
Yes, that's right.
Every third Saturday of the month is Orapalooza.
Is Orapalooza, and it's a great time. But the first time I went down to see her, I went to one of her Friday night meditations. She has those on the last Friday of every month.
I've been to them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I went in, and I'm like, wow, there's some really good energy here. I mean, I just felt enlivened. And we got through the meditation, and it took me 45 minutes before I was comfortable to drive home. I hadn't felt that much energy before.
Yeah.
And I was hooked. That was it.
You're in a room with all these kindred spirits, too. You know, everybody feels exactly the same way you do.
Yes.
And all that energy is just like you connect.
Yeah.
It becomes the matrix. You connect to this energy that's on the same vibe as you, the same level as you.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing.
It's really cool. And I knew I'd found that support group that I needed. And from that, it was just a matter of time before whatever modality was going to show up.
Yeah.
I got a lot of readings early on from other psychics.
Others. Yeah.
Tarot, psychic, whatever I could get my hands on. And they kept saying, you're a healer. And I'm like, I can't stand that long. I have back issues. I'm like, how am I supposed to heal people if I can't stand? And it's about 2 years ago, Lucia, my wife, she retired from the Air Force and moved back home to Minnesota to be with family.
Okay.
And we coincidentally crossed paths on a dating website, and I don't do dating websites. And she was actually, her subscription was running out. And so we had like 3 days overlap. And on my free one and hers running out, we got together for one date, and that's kind of it. And I think when you allow yourself to follow those synchronicities and feel where the good energy is taking you, that things happen that are supposed to happen. And that's part of your soul's growth too, is learning to recognize energy that you can trust, energy that you can, energy that you want to have be part of your family.
Yeah, the synchronicities is like the numbers, right? 444, all the angel numbers, 1111. That's a big one for me. I always get 1111. I look at my clock all the time. It's 1111.
Yeah.
It's like, geez, you know, it only happens twice a day.
I know.
You know? But then you see it on license plates. You see it everywhere. I had it on a bill or a check stub. A receipt. 444. And it's like, okay, I'm supposed to be tuning in now. I'm supposed to be listening to something.
Yeah.
What is it, you know?
Yeah.
Love that synchronicity. And that's just kind of like when the door just starts to crack open a little bit. It's like when you know that things are changing for you and you're starting to grow and get more. Like I had a really strange experience that started me on the path, and that was charging batteries in my hands. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, but that's not what we're here to talk about. So.
No, it's really cool. I love it. It's great.
But we can talk about that offline or something. But yeah, so healer.
Yeah. So, you know, they kept telling me I was a healer, and what I did is I found somebody named Russell Four Eagles. He's got a healing center in Wisconsin, and he needed some help constructing the healing center. It wasn't quite finished. And I'm like, well, I can do that. So
I've had a reading from him.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's a pretty cool guy.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah. And so I went out there for one summer, and virtually every other weekend, and it's like a 3-hour drive each way. So I'd go out on either Friday or Thursday and make sure I had an extra day that I could be there to help with and get the healing center done. But I learned a lot from him, and that was a synchronicity. And interestingly enough, we haven't spoken in almost 2 years.
Oh.
And I think we're both okay with it. It doesn't feel like I need to reconnect with him. It felt like he was a teacher that I needed to meet.
Exactly.
The same way I met Echo, the same way I met other teachers that I've had. And it's just fun.
I call it tools in my toolbox.
Yes.
You know, you go and you learn different things and different modalities from different people, and you take what you need and leave the rest. Take what resonates with you.
Right.
And leave the rest. And I'm a firm believer in that, because I'll never be on one single modality. I infuse them all.
Yeah, well, yeah. You can't limit yourself. I mean.
So readings now, you're doing just the Akashics strictly, or are you doing other kinds of readings and workshops and that sort of thing?
Pretty much just Akashic readings and healings. What I've started doing is offering, if people want to get an in-person reading in my home, we'll leave the records open when the reading is finished, and they'll go on the table, and I'll do a healing there.
Okay.
And that seems to have been maybe what they were pointing at. I mean, obviously you can heal with your voice, and I'm sure that's part of what I'm doing. But as well, when people get on the table, they tell me that they feel things, they hear things, there's vibrations that they've never, their soul's attracting this energy.
Right.
Because their soul's already opened up for the last half hour, 45 minutes.
You're doing soul readings, basically.
Soul readings.
Yeah, soul healings.
Soul healings.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
So, but what heals in the soul heals in the body.
Yes.
So, I mean, dis-ease is really just us having blocks and creating our own illnesses because we don't understand that it's sorry, but I don't think any of it's actually real, and people are going to be mad at me for saying that, but we
Right.
create a lot of our own problems by not dealing with our issues.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, even science now is saying stress can cause you to be sick. Well, if stress can cause you to be sick, then why can't stress to your soul
Yeah.
cause you to be sick?
Yeah, the elimination of stress, is a healing thing right there.
It's huge.
Just get rid of it.
Yeah.
What's stressing you out?
Yep.
Let it go. Let it go.
Yeah.
But I think that's the part that people have the hardest time with, is letting go of things that, they might be baggage and they might be burdening them, but they're so familiar with them that they don't know what to do without them.
Right. There's a comfort factor.
Yeah.
It's almost like they can't live without the discomfort.
Yeah.
And that's an unfortunate situation. That took me a long time to break out of that, But so, yeah, kind of going back to Lucia real quick. So she had a book called Edgar Cayce on the Akashic Records. She has a friend down in Texas who does Akashic readings as well. And she just happened to have some material, and I started reading it, and I'm like, whoa, this is not what other people told me Akashic Records were. And I started reading that book, and needed to get more information. So there's another book by a woman named Akemi Jean. I read that. Finally, I thought, I'm going to find something that tells me how to do it, right? Even though nobody ever told Edgar Cayce how to do it. So there's a book. Are we?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, and that's kind of how the whole thing started.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just a lot of synchronicities, and when you follow
Paying
them,
attention.
Yep.
Paying attention to your soul.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very
Oh
cool.
my gosh. Well, I've got about 10 seconds here to wrap this up. So I just want to say thank you so much
Yes,
for being
thank you. I
here.
appreciate
it's
it so
a
much.
blessing. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.